Beneath the soil you walk on rests a secret only the sky can see. This video explores 25 massive earthworks, colossal designs carved into hills and deserts across the world. By the end, you will see the ancient world not as a collection of isolated cultures, but as participants in a vast, forgotten conversation. We will uncover why a serpent in Ohio mirrors a spider in Peru, and how a horse in England connects to lines in Bolivia. What drove people from the Amazon to Siberia to reshape the planet with such similar visions? The answers lie in a hidden network of knowledge, written not on paper, but into the very skin of the earth. What does our own civilization build to be seen from 1,000 years away? From a plain window over the Peruvian desert, a strange and beautiful truth reveals itself. What looks like empty, sun-baked earth from the ground transforms into a gallery of colossal art, a hummingbird with wings the length of a football field, a spider with legs stretching for acres. This is the perspective our ancestors never had, yet somehow they designed for it. Now, pull that view back further, to a map of the entire world. From the English countryside to the plains of Ohio, from the high deserts of Chile to the dense rainforests of the Amazon, that same pattern of dots appears. Each one marks a place where people chose to reshape the landscape on a staggering scale. This is not a coincidence. It is a pattern, and patterns are the language of intention. These earthworks were not casual doodles in the dirt. They represent some of the most ambitious communal projects in human history, demanding generations of coordinated labor, a shared vision, and a sophisticated grasp of geometry and astronomy to lay out designs that could only be fully appreciated from a vantage point they could never physically reach. They are, as archaeologist Dr. John Hoops describes them, a form of social glue, monumental endeavors that unified people across generations, binding communities together with a common purpose etched into the earth itself. To understand them, we cannot rely on a single tool. We must blend the careful digging of archaeology with the cultural insights of anthropology, and now the God's eye view provided by satellite imagery. These lines and mounds are the ultimate canvas of ancient societies, a silent question written across continents. What powerful idea was so important that it had to be made permanent, not in stone, but in the very skin of the planet? The scale of this ambition is almost impossible to grasp with a modern mind. We must strip away our assumptions of machinery, of metal, of the wheel. Picture a community standing before a vast, empty plain, their tools limited to sharpened sticks, woven baskets, and their own collective will. To build a single massive mound required moving thousands upon thousands of tons of earth. Each basket was carried, one laborious step at a time, by a person whose name is lost to time. This was an investment spanning decades, even centuries. So what exactly were they building? A massive earthwork is defined by this profound intentionality. It is a non-utilitarian modification of the landscape on a grand scale. Unlike a defensive wall built for protection or a terrace carved for farming, these structures served a different master. Their function was ceremonial, symbolic, or astronomical. They were expressions of belief, calendars in clay, or perhaps maps of the cosmos laid at humanity's feet. A perfect example of this mystery sits quietly in the English countryside. Silbury Hill is a gigantic man-made mound, roughly the same volume as the smaller Egyptian pyramids. Yet it contains no burial chamber, no treasure hoard, no obvious purpose at all. It is a monument to the act of monument making itself. This foundational idea is the key that unlocks our global journey. We are not looking at random piles of dirt. We are reading the first chapters of a story humanity wrote directly into the earth, a story of unity, observation, and a deep desire to leave a mark that the sky itself would notice. A single, sinuous form lies coiled upon a ridge in southern Ohio, a quarter-mile of earth sculpted into the shape of a serpent. This is the Great Serpent Mound, an effigy so vast its full design can only be understood from the air. To stand before it is to feel the presence of a different kind of time, a scale of thought that dwarfs our own. Built by the people of the fort ancient culture, possibly around 1,000 years ago, this was not a fortification or a dwelling. It is a symbol made permanent, a winding line of earth that holds a silent conversation with the heavens above. Surveys have revealed its precision is not merely artistic, it is astronomical. The serpent's head is aligned precisely with the setting sun of the summer solstice, while the curves of its body may point to other key lunar events. This transforms the mound from a static sculpture into a dynamic instrument, a giant calendar written across the landscape. Was it a representation of a powerful serpent deity from their stories, a map of constellations snaking across the night sky, or a profound fusion of both? The mystery of its singular, winding form introduces a powerful theme we will see again and again: celestial observation woven directly into the very skin of the earth. This serpent does not just occupy the land, it seems to chart the passage of the sun and moon, binding the community below to the cosmic cycles above. Across an ocean and a continent, the desert of Peru holds a different kind of writing. The Nazca Lines are not raised mounds of earth, but a negative image, a drawing made by subtraction. For over 1,000 years, from around 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after, the Nazca culture worked with simple tools to move the dark, sun-baked stones that littered the plateau, revealing the lighter, sandy soil beneath. Their canvas was immense, their subjects even more so: a spider over 150 feet long, a hummingbird with wings that could swallow a building, a monkey with a spiraling tail. Alongside these breathtaking biomorphs are vast geometric shapes, straight lines running for miles, and trapezoids so large they look like ancient airport runways. The sheer precision is staggering, achieved without the ability to see the whole design from the ground. Theories about their purpose have swirled for decades. The pioneering researcher Marree dedicated her life to their study, proposing they were a giant astronomical calendar, aligning with solstices and constellations. Others suggest they were ritual pathways, walked during ceremonies to invoke life-giving water from the deities in a brutally dry landscape. Yet the most compelling and enduring mystery is one of perspective. From the ground, you see only a shallow groove beside your foot, a path disappearing into the stony distance. The full, magnificent image reveals itself only from a vantage point high above, a perspective the Nazca people could never physically achieve. This forces a profound and haunting question. If they could not see their own masterpiece in its entirety, who or what was the intended audience? Were these messages for the gods, etched into the earth to be read from the heavens? Or were they perhaps maps of a different kind, meant to guide something other than human feet? The Nazca Lines, like the Serpent Mound, are a testament to a vision that transcended the individual human scale. They are acts of faith in geometry, a communal commitment to a design whose true grandeur was held in the mind's eye and perhaps in the eye of the sky itself. This shared characteristic, this creation of the incomprehensibly large for a seemingly unseen viewer, becomes a powerful thread connecting these distant sites into a single, global pattern of human expression. Far from the deserts and serpentine ridges, another kind of line marches across the damp green landscape of Brittany, France. Here, over 3,000 prehistoric standing stones rise from the earth, arranged in long, parallel rows that stretch for miles. This is the Karnak alignments, a megalithic complex so vast it feels less like a monument and more like a petrified army, frozen in silent formation for millennia. These stones, known as menhirs, were raised by Neolithic farming communities beginning over 6,500 years ago, a project that spanned more than 1,000 years. Each one represents a staggering feat of pre-industrial engineering. Without metal tools or the wheel, these people quarried, transported, and erected granite blocks weighing many tons, likely using wooden rollers, ropes, and an immense amount of coordinated human effort. The scale is almost militaristic in its precision, row upon row creating a sense of overwhelming order imposed upon the natural world. But what was the purpose of this colossal stone forest? One compelling theory suggests the alignments functioned as a gigantic astronomical observatory. Certain rows appear to point toward the rising and setting of the sun and moon at key times of the year, turning the entire landscape into a calendar of stone. Other interpretations see them as a sacred geography, demarcating a ritual territory, a boundary between the world of the living and the realm of the ancestors or deities. As one local archaeologist notes for the builders, the land itself was alive with spiritual meaning. By erecting these stones, they were not just marking the earth, they were engaging in a dialogue with it, creating a permanent, physical expression of their beliefs and their place in the cosmos. The Karnak alignments introduce a powerful new thread to our global pattern, the use of repetitive, linear order on a colossal scale. This is not a single image to be seen from above, but an immersive experience of procession and alignment meant to be walked, a landscape engineered to guide both the body and the mind toward a greater understanding. It reveals a human desire to create meaning through sheer, monumental repetition, a pattern we will find echoed in surprising places. High on the rolling green hills of Oxfordshire, a different kind of creature watches over the land. This is the Uffington white horse, a sleek and stylized figure over 360 feet long, carved not by adding earth but by cutting deep into the hillside to reveal the brilliant white chalk beneath. It is not a portrait of a horse but an essence of one, a flowing line of abstract energy that seems to gallop across the ridge, frozen in a moment of perpetual motion. Dating to the late Bronze Age over 3,000 years ago, this is one of the oldest and most enigmatic hill figures in Britain. Its very existence speaks of a tradition not just of creation, but of relentless preservation. For 30 centuries, through Roman occupation, Saxon settlement, and the march of modern history, local communities have gathered in a ritual known as scouring to clear encroaching grass and weeds, replenishing the chalk to keep the horse brilliantly visible. This uninterrupted act of care is perhaps the most powerful testament to its importance. It was never abandoned, never forgotten. It remained a living symbol, its meaning evolving but its presence a constant anchor for the people of the landscape. But what did it originally represent? Some scholars see a connection to the Celtic goddess Epona, a protector of horses and a symbol of sovereignty and power. Others suggest it was a tribal emblem, a giant badge of identity for the people who lived in its shadow, a statement of belonging visible for miles in every direction. The technique itself is a key to its purpose. By cutting through the thin topsoil to the bright substrate, the creators engineered a symbol that would not fade. The white scar would gleam against the green, a stark, unmistakable beacon. This method of negative creation, of revealing a hidden layer, directly links the white horse to desert geoglyphs like the Nazca Lines, though separated by an ocean and a millennium. It was designed for long-distance visibility, to be seen from the valley below and the hills beyond. In a world without maps or borders written on parchment, the horse was a territorial marker, a communal icon, and a piece of shared identity made permanent on the land itself. It asks us what symbols we maintain across generations and what we choose to make visible from a distance. Yet the longest lines of all are not found in a desert, but on a high mountain plateau drawn across the roof of the world. In western Bolivia, near the towering snow-capped peak of the Sajama volcano, lies a network of ancient paths so vast it defies belief. The Sajama lines are not a collection of figures, but an immense web of perfectly straight tracks, etched into the dry, golden altiplano. They cover an area nearly 15 times larger than the more famous Nazca Lines, making this the most extensive archaeological artwork on the planet. For over 3,000 years, these lines have been maintained by the indigenous Aymara and Quechua communities, not as a secret for the gods, but as a vital map for living. This shifts our understanding in a profound way. While the purpose of Nazca remains wrapped in celestial mystery, the function of the Sajama lines is beautifully, humanly clear. These are not just lines, they are roads, each straight path, some stretching for over 12 miles without a single curve, connects tangible, essential places. They link remote villages to sacred mountain springs, guide travelers to ceremonial shrines known as wakas, and lead to the resting places of ancestors housed in ancient burial towers called cholpas. In the thin air of this harsh, breathtaking landscape, where survival itself was a daily challenge, these lines were the ultimate social infrastructure. They wove isolated communities into a connected whole, creating a lifeline across the immense and empty plain. Imagine the practical genius of this design. In a featureless terrain where one could easily become disoriented, a perfectly straight path to the horizon is the most efficient and safest route possible. It minimizes travel time under a relentless sun, directs people reliably to water and shelter, and creates predictable corridors for trade and communication. But their use went beyond the purely practical. These paths also served as pilgrimage routes for spiritual journeys, walked by generations to reach sacred sites for ceremonies and offerings. This dual purpose is the key. The Sajama lines show us that earthworks could be both monument and motorway, both spiritual conduit and social connector. They were not separate from daily life. They were the very framework that made communal life possible across a vast and challenging world. They represent a dialogue with the landscape that was not about leaving a message for the sky, but about sustaining a conversation between people across mountains and through time. The desert holds its secrets close, but sometimes the land itself tells a story to those who know how to look. In the stark, sun-baked expanse of California's Colorado desert, colossal figures lie sleeping on the ground. These are the Blythe Intaglios, a group of giant human and animal forms scraped into the dark desert pavement, revealing the lighter soil beneath. Some figures stretch over 170 feet long, depicting humans with outstretched arms, a coiled serpent, and a mountain lion. Their creation is attributed to the ancestors of the Mojave and Quechan peoples, who crafted these geoglyphs perhaps 1,000 years ago, using only stone tools and a profound knowledge of their home. At first glance, the resemblance to the Nazca Lines is startling. Here, on a different continent, we find the same artistic language, the same technique of negative creation, and the same monumental scale designed for a viewer on high ground. This is not a case of copying, but a parallel expression of a human impulse to make the mythic visible, to anchor stories of creation and power to the very earth one walks upon. For the Mojave and Quechan, these intaglios were far more than art. They were deeply woven into the fabric of their cosmology, likely serving as sacred sites for rituals connected to creation myths and the celestial beings who shaped their world. The human figures may represent Mastamho, the central creator deity, while the animal forms could symbolize powerful spirit helpers. These geoglyphs were not meant to be seen from an airplane, but from the surrounding mesas, turning the entire basin into a ritual theater where the community could gather to witness and participate in ceremonies that reaffirmed their connection to the land and its origins. The most haunting part of their story, however, is how recently they entered the wider world's awareness. Despite their size, the Blythe intaglios remained largely unknown to outsiders until the 1930s, when a pilot flying a mail route happened to glance down and see the giants sleeping in the desert. This simple, almost accidental discovery underscores a humbling truth about our search for this hidden global network. For every Serpent mound or Nazca line that captures our imagination, there may be dozens of other earthworks still hidden in plain sight, their stories patiently waiting for the right moment or the right perspective to be told. They remind us that the map of ancient human expression is still being drawn, and every new line revealed deepens the mystery of our shared past. The story of earthworks is not just about solitary giants, but about entire languages of form spoken across a landscape. In the rolling hills and river valleys of the upper Midwest, this language was written in the shape of living things. Here, thousands of effigy mounds rise from the earth, not as solitary serpents, but as a sprawling community of creatures. Built by Native American cultures of the woodland period from around 700 to 1200 years ago, these were not the towering pyramids of the South, but lower, more intimate sculptures that followed the natural contours of the land. From the air, the Wisconsin countryside reveals a stunning bestiary etched into the soil, a majestic bird with wings spread wide for flight, a lumbering bear with a heavy, rounded body. Elongated, sinuous forms that scholars believe represent water spirits or underworld beings. These were not random choices. Each shape was a profound symbol, a connection to a clan's identity, a spiritual guardian, or a vital force in the natural world. A bird mound might honor the sky and the realm of celestial messengers, while a bear could embody strength, healing, and the power of the earth. Unlike the colossal, singular Serpent mound, these effigy mounds often appear in groups, sometimes dozens clustered together on a ridge overlooking a river. This suggests they served as ceremonial centers where communities would gather for rituals tied to the seasons, the hunt, or the honoring of ancestors. They also acted as territorial markers, a gentle but permanent way of saying, "This land is watched over by these spirits. This is our place in the world." The sheer number and consistency of these forms across present-day Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois point to a widespread, shared cosmology. It was a belief system that saw no hard line between the human community and the community of animals and spirits. By building these forms, people were not just depicting the natural world, they were actively participating in it, weaving their own identity into the very hills they called home. This practice shows us a different facet of the monumental impulse, one focused on multiplicity, relationship, and a deep, animistic reverence for the living landscape. It was a way of making the invisible bonds of belief visible, one sacred shape at a time. But the chalk hills of England hold more than one guardian. Scattered across these ancient landscapes are other colossal figures, each with its own enigmatic story carved into the verdant slopes. Perhaps the most famous and certainly the most provocative is the Cerne Abbas giant. Towering over 180 feet tall, this unmistakable figure is a stark outline of a naked man wielding a massive club. His origins are shrouded in heated debate, a puzzle that pits ancient ritual against much later political mockery. Some archaeologists and folklorists argue he is a prehistoric fertility symbol, perhaps representing a god like the Celtic Hercules or a primal earth deity, his form a powerful invocation for the land's bounty. Others point to historical records and stylistic analysis, suggesting he might be a 17th century creation, a bold piece of political satire aimed at mocking a disliked local landowner or even Oliver Cromwell. The giant's placement is as intentional as his design. He is etched into a steep hillside that acts as a natural amphitheater, ensuring his formidable presence is visible from the valley below and the opposite ridge, a permanent and dominant feature in the community's daily view. Not far away in the hills of East Sussex, a more serene figure keeps watch. The Long Man of Wilmington is a stark contrast, a slender, spectral outline of a man holding a staff in each hand. At over 230 feet tall, he possesses a quiet, mysterious dignity. While often thought of as ancient, his current form may also be a later restoration of a much older, faded original. His pose is ambiguous. Is he a gatekeeper, a surveyor of the land, or a divine being holding open the doors between worlds? These hill figures introduce the human form itself into our global lexicon of earthworks. They are not animals or abstract lines, but representations of people, or perhaps of gods in human shape, projected onto an immense scale. This act raises profound questions about the continuity of sacred space. Whether the CERN giant is 200 or 2,000 years old, the hill he lies upon has likely been a place of significance for millennia. It is a powerful example of how a location can retain its numinous power, its ability to command attention and inspire stories, even as the specific meanings etched into its surface change across centuries. A pagan fertility site might later become a target for satire, yet the hill itself remains a constant canvas for human hopes, fears, and humor, forever inviting the next generation to look up and wonder. The deepest forests hold the quietest secrets, but sometimes they speak in perfect geometry. For centuries, the conventional story of the Amazon was one of a pristine wilderness, a vast, untouched jungle where only small, nomadic tribes could survive. This narrative has been completely overturned by a discovery seen from the air. Hidden beneath the dense canopy in the Brazilian state of Acre are hundreds of massive, precise earthworks. From above, the rainforest opens to reveal enormous circles, perfect squares, and long, straight avenues cleared into the earth, some over 800 feet across. These are not natural formations. They are the Amazonian geoglyphs, and they date back nearly 2,000 years. Their existence shatters the old myth. This was not a virgin forest, but a deeply managed landscape, home to sophisticated societies capable of organizing labor on a staggering scale. The purpose of these enclosures is still being pieced together by archaeologists. They contain no evidence of permanent villages inside them, which rules out typical defensive forts. Instead, they appear to be ceremonial spaces, vast ritual arenas cleared for gatherings, feasts, and spiritual ceremonies. Some researchers also suggest they could have served as symbolic fortifications, marking territorial boundaries or community identity in a landscape without stone. The construction itself reveals a profound understanding of the environment. These societies practiced a form of agroforestry, cultivating useful trees and plants while shaping the land for communal purposes. They were not conquering the jungle, they were collaborating with it, creating clearings for both practical sustenance and profound social ritual. This discovery is a seismic shift in our understanding. It expands our hidden network into the very heart of a biome once thought impossible for monumental earthwork construction. If complex societies were organizing the Amazon 2 millennia ago, then the human impulse to reshape the world with geometric meaning was not limited to deserts or plains. It flourished even under the green cathedral of the rainforest, proving this was a truly global conversation, spoken in the universal language of the land itself. These stone wheels of the desert are far more than random piles of rock. Their radial symmetry is deliberate, a complex geometry emerging from the stark landscape. Many feature a central hub, often a carefully constructed tomb or a cairn marking a resting place. This architectural choice is profound, suggesting the entire structure was designed around this central point. It creates a powerful visual metaphor, as if the life of the individual honored at the center radiates outward in all directions, or perhaps draws the energies of the surrounding world inward. The alignment of certain spokes with the rising and setting sun during solstices adds another layer of meaning, turning these structures into both memorials and calendars. They seem to bind the memory of a person or perhaps a lineage to the eternal, predictable cycles of the cosmos. In this harsh environment, building such a permanent and intricate monument was an immense investment of labor and care. It speaks to a deep need to honor those who came before in a way that was integrated with their understanding of the universe. These wheels are not isolated graves, they are cosmic diagrams in stone, connecting the community to both its ancestors and the heavens. Their incredible age provides perhaps the most crucial link in our entire global network. When the Great Pyramids of Giza were still millennia in the future, people in the Syrian desert were already organizing stones into vast geometric patterns visible from the sky. This pushes the origin of monumental land art back to the very dawn of settled human society. It shows that the impulse to reshape the earth into meaningful, large-scale art is not an advanced cultural development, but one of humanity's most fundamental and oldest traditions. It emerged independently again and again wherever people formed a deep connection to a place. The Armenian wheels stand as a silent, ancient testament to an idea we have seen across the world, that to make a mark on the land is to make a statement about who we are, where we come from, and our place within the grand turning of the stars. Monumental earthworks could also be the beating heart of a city. Rising from the fertile floodplains of the Mississippi River, across the river from modern St. Louis, lies a complex of earthen mounds so vast it redefines our understanding of ancient North America. This is Cahokia, and at its center stands Monk's Mound, a colossal terraced pyramid of earth covering over 14 acres and rising 100 feet into the sky. It is the largest pre-Columbian earthwork north of Mexico, a man-made mountain that served as the literal and spiritual apex of a sprawling metropolis. At its peak between the years 1050 and 1350, Cahokia was not a simple village, but a sophisticated urban center, home to tens of thousands of people, rivaling many contemporary European cities in size and complexity. This was the capital of the Mississippian culture, a society built on agriculture, trade, and a highly stratified social order. Monk's Mound was the physical embodiment of that order. From its flat summit, likely crowned with a temple or the residence of a paramount chief, the rulers would have looked out over a meticulously planned cityscape. Below stretched a grand plaza, surrounded by over 120 other mounds of varying sizes and functions. Some were platforms for elite homes, others were burial mounds for honored individuals, and still others marked important ceremonial spaces. The entire city was aligned with celestial precision, its central axis oriented to the cardinal directions, and its major mounds arranged to mark solar events like the equinoxes. Cahokia represents a profound evolution in our story. It moves us beyond isolated symbols and lines in the landscape to the concept of earthworks as urban infrastructure. These mounds were the architecture of power, religion, and community. They organized space, directed the flow of people during grand ceremonies, and projected the authority of the ruling class across the entire Mississippi Valley. The construction of Monk's Mound alone required moving over 22 million cubic feet of earth in woven baskets, a communal effort that would have unified the population under a shared, monumental purpose for generations. Cahokia shows us that the impulse to reshape the earth was not always about leaving a message for the heavens or the horizon. Here, it was about building a world, a complete and functioning civilization whose skyline was not stone or wood, but sculpted soil, a testament to what human cooperation could achieve on a truly grand scale. Yet the most recent giant on our planet appeared not in antiquity but within living memory. In 1998, a pilot flying over the remote, sun-scorched plains of South Australia saw something impossible. Etched into the red desert floor was the colossal figure of an Aboriginal man, over 2.5 miles tall, holding a traditional hunting boomerang. This is the Marree man, a modern geoglyph of staggering scale, and its sudden appearance ignited a mystery that remains unsolved. Created with GPS coordinates and modern bulldozers, the figure's lines are over 100 feet wide and 20 inches deep, visible from space. Its form, however, is a direct echo of the ancient, a depiction of an indigenous hunter from a culture with a 60,000-year history of deep connection to that very land. This juxtaposition created immediate tension. Here was a symbol of profound antiquity, rendered with space-age technology by persons unknown. The mystery of its creator's identity and motive sparked intense debate. Was it an anonymous artist's tribute, a complex hoax, or a statement about land rights and cultural identity? The local Aboriginal communities, the Diri people, had no prior knowledge of its creation, leading to feelings of confusion and a sense that their sacred landscape had been marked without consent. The Marree man forces us to confront a haunting question. Why does this ancient practice, the carving of giant earth figures, remain so compelling in our modern, satellite-mapped world? The technology changed, but the impulse did not. It reveals a deep-seated, perhaps timeless human desire to inscribe meaning onto the land itself, to create a mark so large it defies erasure, demanding to be seen and interpreted across generations. This modern mystery acts as a powerful mirror, reflecting our own place in this long story. It suggests that the drive to participate in this hidden network, to leave a signature on the earth that the sky can read, is not a relic of the past. It is a thread that runs unbroken through human history, from the stone tools of Armenia to the GPS-guided bulldozers of the Australian outback, asking us what we are building now that the future will see from above. Yet another form of communal architecture rises not from soil or stone, but from the sea itself. Along the subtropical coastlines of the American Southeast, from South Carolina down through Florida, low circular ridges gleam in the sunlight, built not of earth, but of countless oyster and clam shells. These are the shell rings, and they are among the oldest monumental constructions in North America, built over 4,000 years ago by archaic period hunter-gatherer societies. This fact alone challenges another assumption, that monumental building requires settled, agricultural life. These communities moved with the seasons, following the rich bounty of estuaries and forests, yet they still invested immense collective effort to create permanent places in the landscape. A single ring might contain the shells of millions of mollusks, carefully piled into circular or arcing walls that could be over 300 feet in diameter. The scale is communal, but the material is intimate, each shell a remnant of a shared meal, a tiny artifact of daily life transformed into architecture. The purpose of these rings remains a subject of thoughtful interpretation by archaeologists. They show little evidence of being defensive walls or permanent villages. Instead, the most compelling theory is that they served as central gathering places for seasonal rendezvous. Imagine different family groups, dispersed across the coastal plain for much of the year, coming together at a designated time, perhaps during a peak abundance of resources. They would feast on shellfish, the discarded shells steadily building up the ring that defined their communal space. Within this sheltered, circular enclosure, they would exchange news, arrange marriages, trade goods like tools stolen from distant quarries, and conduct important ceremonies. The ring itself, built from the literal remains of their shared sustenance, became a physical symbol of their unity and a calendar of their annual rhythms. This introduces a beautiful new dimension to our global network, the idea of a monument built from the debris of daily life. It shows that earthworks could be accretional, growing slowly over generations through routine practice rather than a single grand plan. They were not imposed upon the landscape from above, but emerged from it, a collaboration between a people and the abundant sea, creating a permanent anchor for a mobile society and a powerful testament to the human need for connection, season after season for thousands of years. 13 stone towers stand in a silent line across a barren Peruvian ridge, a row of jagged teeth biting into the horizon. This is Chankillo, and for centuries its purpose was a forgotten secret. Built around 300 years before the Common Era, these structures are not a fortress or a temple in the conventional sense. They are something far more precise, a giant stone machine built to measure the most fundamental rhythm of all, the journey of the sun. From a single, carefully positioned observation point to the west, a viewer would witness the sunrise each morning. But here is the genius as the year progresses. The point where the sun breaks the horizon slides steadily along the ridge. On the December solstice, it rises directly to the right of the rightmost tower. As the days lengthen, the sunrise marches leftward, peaking between the gaps in the towers, until it reaches the far left tower on the June solstice, before beginning its slow march back again. Each tower marks a specific date, turning the entire horizon into a giant, immovable calendar with an accuracy of just 1 or 2 days. This was not passive observation, it was architecture as an instrument. The entire complex, including fortified walls and plazas, suggests Chankillo was a ceremonial center, likely operated by a specialized priesthood who held the vital knowledge of timekeeping. They would have used this solar calendar to dictate the optimal moments for planting, harvesting, and holding the festivals that bound society to the cycles of the natural world. This site provides perhaps the clearest, most elegant proof of a theme we have traced from Ohio to Karnak, the human drive to monumentalize celestial knowledge. The serpent aligns with solstices, the stone rows point to lunar standstills, and here 13 towers capture the sun's entire yearly dance. Chankillo proves that building to watch the sky was not a peripheral activity, it was a central, unifying purpose. It was a way to make time itself visible, solid, and sacred, etching the laws of the cosmos directly into the landscape for all to see and for a chosen few to interpret. Deep in the remote Ural Mountains of Siberia, a giant from the Stone Age sleeps on a hillside. This is the Siberian moose geoglyph, a colossal outline of an animal laid out with white stone and packed clay, stretching nearly 900 feet from its antlers to its hooves. Discovered only in 2011 through satellite imagery, this ancient artwork was crafted over 6,000 years ago, making it one of the oldest known animal figures on the planet, far older than the pyramids of Egypt. Its creators were not farmers or city builders, but nomadic hunter-gatherers, people who moved across the harsh, beautiful landscape following the herds. This single fact expands our hidden network in a breathtaking way. The impulse to create monumental land art was not the sole property of agricultural societies with surplus grain and settled populations. It emerged with equal power among people living intimately with the wild, whose survival depended on a deep, sacred relationship with the animals they hunted. The moose itself was likely more than just a picture. It was a being of immense spiritual and practical importance, a source of food, clothing, and tools, and perhaps a clan ancestor or a powerful spirit guide. Building this geoglyph would have been a massive communal undertaking. Thousands of stones were gathered and arranged, and clay was dug and packed to create the contrasting lines visible against the green slope. This was not a casual pastime. It was a profound ritual act, an investment of energy that bound the community together in honoring the very essence of the creature that sustained them. By creating a permanent image of the moose in the land, they may have been performing a form of sympathetic magic, ensuring the animal's abundance for generations to come, or marking a sacred territory under its protection. The remote solitude of the site adds to its power. It feels like a message not for outsiders, but for the community itself and the spirits of the mountain. This Siberian moose, silent for millennia, firmly plants our global pattern into the vastness of northern Asia. It proves this was not a practice confined to the so-called cradles of civilization, but a fundamental human language spoken in countless dialects, from the deserts of Peru to the forests of Siberia, by all peoples who felt the need to make their beliefs visible on the grandest canvas they had, the living earth. The story of monumental earthworks is also a story of trade, written not in ledgers but in the soil. on a wide, flat plain overlooking the Mississippi River floodplain in northeastern Louisiana, a different kind of geometry unfolds. This is Poverty Point, a sprawling complex of earthworks built not by farmers, but by a sophisticated hunter-gatherer society over 3,700 years ago. Its central feature is a breathtaking set of 6 concentric C-shaped ridges, each one towering over 6 feet high, forming a giant, semi-elliptical amphitheater that opens toward the river. Beyond these ridges, several massive earthen mounds rise from the landscape, including a bird-shaped effigy mound that rivals the scale of those in Wisconsin. The sheer volume of earth moved here is almost incomprehensible, estimated at over 1 million cubic yards. Every single basketful was carried by hand, without the help of domesticated animals or even agriculture to provide a stable food surplus. This fact alone forces a profound rethinking of what hunter-gatherer societies were capable of achieving. Poverty Point was not a village in the traditional sense, but a grand, seasonal gathering place, a pilgrimage center of astonishing ambition. Its true power, however, is revealed not just in its form, but in what archaeologists have found within its soil. Excavations have uncovered raw materials from across half a continent. Copper from the Great Lakes region over 1,000 miles to the north, chert for tools from the Ohio River Valley, quartz crystals from the Ozark Mountains, even soapstone from the Appalachian foothills. This was no isolated community. It was the beating heart of a vast, ancient trade network. People from hundreds of miles away would have journeyed here, bringing their unique materials and goods to exchange in the shadow of these colossal earthworks. The ridges themselves may have served as elevated foundations for temporary dwellings or ceremonial structures during these great gatherings, creating a ready-made, organized space that could host thousands. Poverty Point shatters the old assumption that large-scale, complex societies and monumental construction require the stability of farming. Here, a people living off the wild bounty of the river and forest achieved a level of social organization and cooperative vision that rivals any early agricultural society. They built not for defense or storage, but for connection, transforming their home into a continental crossroads, a place where geography, commerce, and sacred geometry converge to create one of the most unexpected and powerful landscapes in ancient North America. The Atacama Desert is the driest place on Earth, a vast, silent expanse where the very concept of water feels like a memory. Yet on the slopes of the Cerro Unitas mountain, a giant stands watch over this emptiness. This is the Atacama Giant, a colossal human figure stretching 390 feet from head to toe, making it the largest anthropomorphic geoglyph in the world. Its stark, linear form is a simple silhouette, yet it holds a complexity that speaks across centuries. Created over 1,000 years ago, this figure is attributed to the influence of the Tiwanaku culture and later used by the Inca, serving as a monumental guidepost along ancient trade routes that crossed the punishing desert. For weary travelers, the sight of this immense human outline on the hillside would have been a profound relief, a clear signal that they were on a known path, a marker of civilization in a landscape that offered no other mercy. But its purpose ran far deeper than a simple road sign. Researchers studying its alignment have discovered a fascinating celestial function. The giant's head is not a simple circle, it is elongated and distinctly rectangular. This shape, it is believed, was designed to precisely track the line of the moon. As our lunar companion moves through its complex 18.6-year cycle, its path across the sky shifts. The unique form of the giant's head appears to align with the moon's most extreme northern and southern positions, known as the lunar standstills. This transforms the figure from a static landmark into a dynamic astronomical instrument. Imagine a caravan pausing not just for rest but for observation. Priests or star watchers could use the giant's form to predict lunar cycles, which in turn governed the timing of ceremonies, trade fairs, and possibly even the scheduling of safe passage across the desert based on moonlight. This brilliant fusion of utility and cosmology ties together so many threads from our journey. Here is the human form, like the Cern Abbas giant, projected onto a monumental scale. Here is the precise astronomical alignment we saw at Chankillo and the Serpent Mound, baked into the very design. And here is the social connective tissue, like the Sajama lines, serving travelers and binding distant communities through shared knowledge written on the earth. The Atacama giant does not merely occupy the landscape, it converses with it, using the human silhouette as a conduit between the dust of the trade road below and the cold, precise mathematics of the moon above. It is a reminder that in the ancient world, navigation was never just about physical geography. It was a holistic art of finding one's place in a network of paths, people, and planets. 2,000 years ago, a different kind of geometry was taking shape in the fertile valleys of Ohio. The Newark earthworks are not a single mound or a solitary figure, but a sprawling, interconnected complex of colossal enclosures, built by the Hopewell culture with a precision that still inspires awe. Covering over 4 square miles, this was a ceremonial landscape of breathtaking ambition, featuring a giant circular enclosure connected to a precise octagon, which in turn aligns with a vast, square-shaped earthwork. The scale is staggering, but the true genius lies in the mathematics. These are not rough approximations, but geometrically perfect forms executed across hundreds of acres. The Great Circle, for instance, is exactly 1,054 feet in diameter, a dimension that suggests a sophisticated understanding of measurement. Yet the purpose of these enclosures was not merely to demonstrate geometric skill, it was to create a permanent observatory for the most subtle celestial dance. The octagon's 8 walls and gateways are not randomly placed. They align with key points of the moon's complex 18.6-year cycle, specifically its most extreme rising and setting points on the horizon, known as the lunar standstills. This means that over the course of a generation, a person standing at the center of the octagon would witness the moon at the peak of its cycle rise and set directly through specific gateways in the earthwork walls. This was architecture as long-term timekeeping, a calendar built for the patience of generations. The construction itself represents a profound communal effort, a sustained project that would have unified people across lifetimes. The Newark earthworks represent a high point of this ancient scientific and spiritual tradition in North America. They demonstrate a deep, sustained engagement with lunar cycles that rivals the solar precision of Chankillo, adding a profound layer of astronomical sophistication to our growing network. This was not casual sky watching, it was a meticulous, monumental recording of cosmic rhythm, a way to anchor the community to a celestial pulse that far outlasted any single human life. It shows us that the shared knowledge of this hidden network included not just simple solstice markers, but an advanced, generational understanding of the heavens, etched into the very contours of the earth with a geometer's unwavering hand. A different kind of sacred mark lies hidden within the limestone canyons of the lower Picos in Texas. Here, the monumental work is not a solitary mound on a plain, but a profound enhancement of the landscape itself, a collaboration between human hands and the natural architecture of the earth. For over 4,000 years, the rock shelters and river terraces of this region served as a ceremonial canvas. While not a giant geoglyph visible from miles away, the White Shaman Mound and the surrounding sites represent a powerful, intimate form of earthwork. This location includes carefully modified terraces and accumulations of cultural material that formed low mounds over centuries of use, central stages for the ritual life of the hunter-gatherer peoples who called this place home. Their most stunning legacy, however, is painted on the walls. The White Shaman Rock Shelter preserves a breathtaking polychrome mural, a complex narrative scene featuring towering, otherworldly figures engaged in what researchers interpret as a pivotal moment of spiritual transformation, possibly related to the ritual use of sacred plants to commune with the spirit world. This art is not separate from the land, it is the heart of it. The mound, the terraces, and the paintings are all part of a single, integrated sacred geography. The people did not seek to flatten the land and impose a new geometry upon it, as at Cahokia or Newark. Instead, they listened to the existing contours of the canyon, amplifying its natural power. They built up platforms where the earth suggested a stage, and they painted their visions on the stone walls that nature had already provided as a sheltering gallery. This approach fundamentally broadens our definition of monumental landscape modification. It shows that earthworks are not always about creating something entirely new from raw materials. Sometimes the most powerful act was to recognize the sacredness already present in a place, a particular shelf of rock overlooking the river, a cave that echoed with the voice of the wind, and to gently, deliberately enhance it. The white shaman landscape asks us to see with different eyes. It reminds us that for ancient peoples, the entire world was alive with meaning, and their greatest architectural projects were often conversations with that living world, a careful process of listening and then adding a single, profound brushstroke to a masterpiece that nature had already begun. But the story of northern giants did not end with the Siberian moose. In 2012, another discovery quietly reshaped the map of ancient land art. In the remote, mist-shrouded Ural Mountains of Russia, near the shores of Lake Zuratkul, satellite imagery revealed the outline of a massive creature laid out in stone. This is the Zuratkul geoglyph, a colossal figure of an elk, or perhaps a deer, stretching nearly 900 feet from its delicate muzzle to the tips of its 4 powerful legs. Its form is strikingly similar in scale and technique to its Siberian cousin, built by carefully arranging local white stones to create a stark, linear silhouette against the green of the mountainside. Yet it possesses its own distinct artistic character, with elongated proportions and a graceful posture that suggests a creature captured in mid-stride. The discovery sent a ripple of excitement and new questions through the archaeological community. Here was another testament to the ancient practice of monumental animal effigies, but the challenge of understanding it is immense. The site is exceptionally difficult to date with precision, as the stones themselves offer no organic material for carbon dating. Current estimates, based on soil analysis and weathering patterns, suggest it could be between 6,000 and 8,000 years old, placing its creation firmly in the Neolithic era by hunter-gatherer peoples. Ongoing research focuses on meticulously mapping every stone, searching for tools or cultural material in the soil beneath, and trying to understand the logistics of its construction in such a rugged, high-altitude environment. What does this second, distant giant reinforce? It solidifies a pattern we have now traced from the effigy mounds of Wisconsin to the moose of Siberia, a recurring artistic vocabulary across the northern continents. In landscapes dominated by vast forests and powerful seasonal migrations, the most important animals, the elk, the moose, the bear, the bird, were not merely food sources. They were central characters in mythology, spiritual guides, and symbols of the life force of the land itself. To immortalize them on such a scale was an act of profound reverence, a way of weaving the community's identity and survival into the very fabric of the earth. This repeated motif hints less at a single, connected culture and more at a universal human response to a specific way of life. When your world is defined by the rhythm of the herd and the silence of the deep woods, your most monumental art naturally pays homage to the beings that make that world possible. The Russian elk stands as a silent, stony echo of a shared understanding, a reminder that the hidden network is woven not just from traded goods or aligned stars, but from the deep, shared stories we tell about the creatures we live alongside. The prairie floor of Washington state is dotted with thousands of gentle, grassy domes, each one rising like a perfect green bubble from the earth. These are the Mounds, a landscape of such strange uniformity it feels deliberately designed, a vast, natural-looking quilt stitched across the land. Their origin is one of geology's most enduring puzzles, a debate that draws a line directly between the forces of nature and the subtle hand of humanity. On one side, scientists point to purely natural explanations, such as the slow churning of soil by glaciers or the persistent, generations-long work of pocket gophers building their burrows. The other side, however, listens to a different story, one told by the land itself and the practices of the people who have lived there for millennia. For generations, Native American communities, including the Coast Salish peoples, practiced controlled burning of these prairies. This was not destruction, but a sophisticated form of land management. Regular, low-intensity fires kept invading forests at bay, nurtured the growth of beneficial plants like Coma's lilies for food, and maintained the open grassland ecosystem. Some researchers now propose a fascinating middle ground, that this very practice of cyclical burning over centuries could have altered the soil structure and hydrology in a way that enhanced or even initiated the formation of these mounds. The fire cleared woody debris, the ash enriched the soil, and the pattern of regrowth may have subtly shaped the earth itself over countless seasons. This possibility forces us to look at the mounds with new eyes. They may represent the ultimate blurred line, a landscape that is neither purely natural nor explicitly monumental, but perhaps a co-creation. What if the ancient network we have been tracing includes not just the clear, intentional lines and figures, but also these amplified, managed, and culturally sustained environments? The mounds challenge our definitions. They remind us that the most profound human modifications of the earth are not always about imposing a new form, but about entering into a sustained, reciprocal relationship with the processes already at work, gently steering them over centuries toward a state that benefits both the community and the ecological whole. In the quiet, rolling hills of the Mima Prairie, we find a whisper of the network, a suggestion that the conversation between people and planet was often conducted in a language of subtle enhancement, a dialogue so integrated with nature that we are still learning to hear its words. The most famous circle of stones in the world is only the centerpiece of a much grander design. Stonehenge stands not in isolation, but as the dramatic focal point within a vast, engineered ritual landscape, a canvas of earth and chalk sculpted over thousands of years. To understand its true purpose, we must widen our gaze beyond the towering trilithons to the surrounding terrain. Here, older and equally monumental earthworks form a complex ceremonial geography. The Stonehenge cursus is a colossal, enigmatic earthwork, a nearly 2-mile-long enclosure defined by parallel banks and ditches that runs east-west just north of the stone circle. Its name, given by 18th-century antiquarians, means racecourse, but its true function remains one of archaeology's great puzzles, likely serving as a processional way or a boundary separating sacred from mundane space. Then there is the avenue, a paired bank and ditch corridor that gracefully curves from Stonehenge itself down to the River Avon, clearly marking a formal path of approach for those coming to the site by water. And dotting the entire area are hundreds of burial mounds or barrows, clustered in groups known as barrow cemeteries, the final resting places of individuals who are part of this sacred community. This holistic view transforms our understanding. Stonehenge was not a standalone temple, but a powerful node within a meticulously choreographed environment. The entire landscape was part of the ritual script, with each earthwork playing a specific role in a grand, generational ceremony of life, memory, and cosmic alignment. People would have approached via the avenue, perhaps pausing at the cursus, before entering the stone circle for ceremonies tied to the solstices. afterwards, they may have processed to the barrows to honor ancestors, physically walking a path that connected the living, the dead, and the celestial cycles. This concept of the designed ritual landscape is a key that unlocks many sites on our global list. Just as the Newark earthworks combined circles, octagons, and squares, and as Cahokia organized platform mounds around central plazas, the Stonehenge landscape shows that ancient architects thought in terms of integrated systems. They did not just build monuments on the land, they built with the land, using its contours, waterways, and sightlines to create immersive experiences. The single, spectacular feature we remember today was always meant to be experienced as part of a greater whole, a chapter in a story written across miles of chalk downland. This reminds us that when we encounter a solitary mound or a ring of stones, we are likely seeing only one piece of a much larger, now faded puzzle, where the entire terrain was an essential part of the message. A final, glittering thread in this global tapestry leads us not to lines on a plain, but to a sacred bowl carved into a mountain. In the green highlands of Colombia, the Muisca people shaped their world not with sprawling figures, but by sculpting the land into a theater for one of history's most enduring legends. Their masterpiece was the ritual landscape surrounding Lake Guatavita, a perfectly circular lake nestled in the crater of an ancient terraced hill. This was no ordinary body of water. It was the ceremonial heart of a kingdom, a stage for a ritual so powerful it would echo across oceans and centuries as the dream of El Dorado. The Muisca transformed the entire hillside into concentric terraces, creating vast, stepped platforms that could hold thousands of spectators looking down upon the dark, still water below. This was a different kind of earthwork, one that created a sacred basin and an amphitheater in a single, breathtaking act of landscape engineering. The purpose was to host a ceremony of breathtaking scale and symbolism. During the initiation of a new ruler, the Zipa, he would be covered in powdered gold and would journey by raft to the center of the lake. There, amidst a cacophony of music and chanting from the terraces above, he would plunge into the waters, washing the gold from his body as an offering to the gods, while a rain of golden figurines and emeralds was thrown into the lake by the priests. This act was the origin of the El Dorado legend, the Gilded One, that would later drive European explorers to obsession. But for the Muisca, it was never about a city of gold, it was about a profound exchange. The terraced earth and the ritual lake formed a single, integrated system connecting the community to the divine. The earthworks provided the sacred space, the water received the offering, and the precious materials symbolized the very essence of life and political power being renewed. This practice represents a monumental investment in spiritual infrastructure, a permanent modification of the landscape to host a transient, yet vitally important communal drama. It reminds us that earthworks could also be vessels, designed not just to be seen, but to contain and facilitate a moment of transformation, binding a people to their leaders, their gods, and the shimmering, sacred materials of their world. 25 monuments now lie mapped across our mental landscape, from serpent to spider, from wheel to wall. But a map is not an explanation. To move from awe to understanding, we must step back and trace the common threads woven through this hidden global network. 3 powerful patterns emerge, repeated across continents and millennia. First, the language of shapes. Spirals, concentric circles, straight lines, and animal effigies appear again and again, a visual vocabulary spoken from Siberia to Peru. Second, the universal drivers. Celestial alignment, whether solar, lunar, or stellar, is perhaps the most consistent purpose, turning Earth into a colossal clock. Deeply held spiritual beliefs and the powerful need for social cohesion provided the fuel for these generational projects. Third, the shared techniques, from piling baskets of earth to scraping away dark desert pavement, reveal a practical wisdom in using local materials to create lasting contrast. This repetition forces a pivotal question, one that has divided scholars for generations. Did cultures on opposite sides of the world invent these monumental forms independently, driven by similar human experiences under the same sun and stars? Or does this network hint at some form of ancient, long-distance contact, a slow diffusion of ideas along trade routes or with migrating peoples? The evidence points compellingly toward independent invention. The sheer timescales and vast geographical gaps make direct contact for many of these sites highly unlikely. A more profound truth emerges from this conclusion. It suggests that when human societies reach a certain level of complexity and a deep, enduring connection to their homeland, a powerful impulse naturally manifests. It is the impulse to translate inner worlds myths, cosmic observations, social structures into outer, permanent marks. This leads us to the ultimate reflective question posed by this entire journey. Does this hidden network reveal not a lost civilization, but a fundamental aspect of the human psyche itself? Across every environment, from rainforest to tundra, people chose to inscribe their most important beliefs onto the earth at a scale that defied individual lifespans. They built for the horizon and for the sky, for ancestors and for descendants they would never meet. This was not mere landscaping, it was a profound act of meaning-making. It was a way to say, we are here, this is what we hold sacred, this is how we understand time and our place within it. The earth became the ultimate communal canvas, a shared memory bank for cultures that had not yet written with words. In this light, each mound, each line, each giant figure is a signature of a shared human condition, a deep-seated need to anchor our fleeting stories to something enduring, to converse with the cosmos, and to leave a testament that whispers, we mattered, across the centuries. From the serpent's coil in Ohio to the spider's web in Peru, a single truth now emerges from the soil. These 25 earthworks are not isolated curiosities, but individual verses in a much larger human epic. They form a hidden network, not of traded goods or marching armies, but of shared ideas that transcended oceans and epochs. This was a global conversation conducted in the universal language of landscape, a way for humanity to speak to the gods, to map the cosmos, and to forge unbreakable bonds with one another across generations. The most profound takeaway from this journey is a quiet revolution in perspective. For too long, we have viewed the ancient world as a collection of separate, disconnected cultures, each struggling in isolation. These colossal earthworks tell a different story. They reveal a world where people, separated by vast distances, arrived at strikingly similar solutions to the great human questions. How do we mark our place in the universe? How do we ensure the sun returns, the rains fall, and the community endures? The answers were carved into the very skin of the earth, from the Amazon basin to the Siberian taiga, demonstrating a shared ingenuity and a common spiritual yearning that links all of humanity. This discovery invites a fundamental shift in how we see our own world. History is not confined to the pages of a book or the walls of a museum. It is written in the gentle swell of a prairie mound, in the stark white line on a chalk hill, in the silent geometry of a desert drawing. The next time you walk through a landscape, pause for a moment, look beyond the obvious, consider the contours, the alignments, the subtle ways the land itself might hold a memory. You are walking across the greatest archive we have, a library built of earth and stone, waiting for its stories to be read. If this journey across the planet's hidden art has sparked your curiosity, there are countless more mysteries waiting to be explored. Consider subscribing for more deep dives into history's greatest enigmas, and we would love to hear from you. Share in the comments below which of these 25 earthworks you find most astonishing and why it captures your imagination. The conversation about our shared human past is just beginning.